Welcome to the Business Podcast, where we interview professionals across all industries. Hey, it's Simon. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Fabricio Costa. He's an academic turned serial entrepreneur who's dedicated and enchanted by data science. Fabricio, it's so nice to have you here. How are you today?
I'm great. First of all, thank you very much, Ayman, for the invitation to do the Honors podcast. Is a pleasure. It's always good to do those podcasts and videocasts. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure as well. I always like to start off with this question, and that is, what is something you could share about yourself, either personally or professionally, that people can't easily find out by looking you up?
Well, it's both personal and professional. When I was younger, I wanted to be, I think a lot of people at my age and my I would say my age range now in the 90s wanted to be an astronaut because of the whole NASA and the spaceships, like the space the Challenger problem that happened and all of that, but mainly because NASA was doing a lot of construction with the International Space Station, even though there was some problems with the Challenger disaster. But I liked to think about the space as a whole, the big things like the Einstein's theory and astronomy. But then time went by, and I had a teacher in high school that was a very good biology teacher, and when she gave me the genetics course, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to understand the small things, not the big things. So genetics, like the genetic code, the DNA, and everything that makes life what it is. So that's something that maybe is not in my bio, or I gave some interviews that probably I said that, but my major thing that I wanted to be when I growed up as a teenager or before university was an astronaut, which was a big step to go to the moon and stuff like that. But now, as you see, I became an academic with a PhD that turned into an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. So I changed my perspective based on what happened in my professional and personal life. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. With that in mind, the career that you've created, what are you saying, or what would you say are two pieces of wisdom that you could share from that experience so far?
Well, two pieces of wisdom based on what I've been doing for more than 20 years, both in academia and in companies that I've built, companies that I've worked, like the program that I was heading at Apple Incorporation for almost 5 years. The first advice, the first wisdom would be trust, confidence. When you are dealing with teams and people, when leading teams, or it could be a scientific project, it could be a technological project, it could be any type of construction or whatever, you have to trust in your boss or someone above you, and you have to trust in your team, having confidence that they can deliver. So you have to choose well the team that you are leading. So trust is the first one, and the other one I think goes side by side with trust, which is integrity and honesty. So I like during my professional career, I've dealt with several types of personalities, and I think my personality, I come from a family that that values a lot honesty, integrity, trusting people. And I had some things that happened to me during my professional life, both in academia and as a serial entrepreneur, that got me thinking about those two things: a lot of trust in people that you are dealing with, and honesty and integrity. Honesty in terms of, like, let me give an example. Trust, you have to build with time. That's something very important. So it's not something that happens like in 1 minute, and it can be disassembled in 1 second, right? And integrity and honesty, I think those are things that are important because, for example, if you are leading a team, the good news you give right away, right? But the bad news, like things are not going well, we don't have funding, we have to find an investor or something. It's not like we are not, the money is not paying the salaries this month or in 3 months. The bad news you have to be giving right away. So you have to be good and honest in both ways, in the good news and in the bad news. So the pieces of advice or wisdom, as you can tell, I think those two or three things are important: trust and honesty and integrity. I see as the same thing.
Thank you for sharing that. It makes me curious about how that culminates given your academic background. And another question I'd be curious about is, what would you say is a major lesson that you've learned over the course of the last year?
The last year? Last year was a very complicated year, personally and professionally for me. So the pandemic came, it hit the globe, like since March. We are going to April already. It's more than 1 year. And I think everybody in the globe was somehow affected, independent on the class. Like if you are a billionaire or if you are poor person, of course it affects in different ways. So one lesson from last year that I've got, and I lost a cousin by COVID-19, a medical doctor in Brazil that was in the front lines in the middle of the last year. Losing people right now close to my family, like friends of friends, or even very close people. So I would say the lesson is and as a scientific guy that was in academia, and I just read a book about CRISPR-Cas9 and gene editing, and how they use all of this information and technology that we have right now to develop the vaccines in a year for COVID-19. I think the biggest lesson right now is collaboration between humans to somehow attack or to avoid pandemia like those that hit really hard the world. Is something that I never saw in my lifetime, and even my dad and my mom. So after the Second World War or whatever, that's the biggest event that happened for humanity. So I think that the speed that this happened was amazing, but nonetheless it happened because we had the technology, we had the scientific knowledge. Genomics was very important to understand the DNA sequence of the virus. It's an RNA virus, but you had to convert to DNA to understand. So I think collaboration between the scientific community as a whole, being in academia or even in pharma and big pharma and biotech companies like the AstraZeneca University of Oxford developing a vaccine was a big lesson from last year. So it shows us that we as a big community, as humans, we have to collaborate for the species. So we see, well, capitalism, and I saw that a lot in the academic system, and even in entrepreneurship, is all about competition. Who gets there first? Who gets more money? Who gets a billionaire? Who gets to become a billionaire? But humans. So you see, I wrote a blog post about that, and Anthony Hopkins, the big actor, I think he's Australian or British, I don't recall, and he correct me if I'm wrong. He said, well, look at this. We have all of these material things, and a little nanoparticle, a little microbe can kill us all and end life for humans in the world, in the globe. So I think, I think the biggest lesson is humility. Be humble. We are nothing.
Well, that's a really interesting way to put it. Looking back on your career, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges? And perhaps you can share some takeaways from that.
The biggest challenge for me is dealing with people. Different personalities, people with different backgrounds. I think it's awesome that you have a diverse team, but the egos, people that wants to appear more than others. When you were leading a team, when I was the CEO of the company that I co-founded, so when you were leading a team of 50 people, or in the Apple program that I had, like you have like 200 people under your umbrella. So deal with people is the most challenging thing ever, I think. In any place, academic places, which the ego is the highest in the world. Like if you are in Harvard, for example, everybody wants to be the best. If you are a startup and you are the CEO of that startup, you want to raise the most money you can to become one of the biggest. So I think mainly dealing with people. And the second thing would be communication. So communication is key to anything. Business, scientific communication between teams, especially when you are collaborating. So I would say dealing with people is tough.
And in terms of your career and the projects you've worked on, the projects you're working on now, what would you say has been an inflection point where you saw from that point onward, it would be a game changer for what you're doing, what you're pursuing?
Well, my game changer in my professional career, Eamon, was the change that I've done in the past, from going from academia, being at Harvard for 2 years as a postdoctoral training or postdoctoral degree, becoming a serial entrepreneur. So even though there are several parallels, I think was a big change that I've done in my professional career. I have to learn a lot of things, new things like business that you don't have when you do a PhD in science, or you have a background in science. Like I have a bachelor's in science, a PhD in science, in focusing in cancer biology or genomics of cancer. So I think I had to learn on the go how to deal with people, how to business plan, MVPs, market analysis, all of the business related things. So I think this was one of my biggest game changers that happened in my professional career, and I had to adapt. I have to learn a lot, and was fulfilling in some aspects. I learned a lot. I did MBA-ish when the company that I was the CEO and co-founder was accelerated by Startup Health Academy, based in New York. They get the CEOs and they get equity in the company, and they accelerate and they get you into investor relations conferences. And that's how I got in contact with Apple and got into their program as a head of their developers international training program. So a game changer for me was transitioning from academia to becoming an entrepreneur. Even though there are several parallels, a lot of competition in both places was a game changer.
And that's a really unique story given your academic background. Can you speak a little bit about your first venture, your first organization, and what sparked you to jump into it? What was the thesis or the background, and what was the product or service?
Sure. So as a serial entrepreneur, I have under my portfolio 4 companies that I started. I would say 2 were big failures, and one was a big success, and one was so. The first one was when I was doing my PhD in São Paulo, Brazil, in the University of São Paulo with the Ludwig Institute for Cancer Research, and me and 2 other PhDs, we had this idea of trying to combine our expertise, different expertise, and there was a big lack of scientific communication. Now we see how important it is because of the coronavirus. Everybody knows why it's important to know about virology, why viruses can kill, like the COVID-19, the microbiology of all of the microbes that are in the air or come from animals, or they can come from like the Amazon or any place. Like they can come from monkeys or bats or whatever. So our idea was to bring to schools, high schools, or even other universities with the background that we had to undergrad students, scientific communication. What was going on in terms of, at that time, the whole Human Genome Project was ongoing. So bring to them the outcomes that could come with the Human Genome Project in terms of treatment of diseases like cancer, diabetes, complex diseases like those Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and even specific rare genetic disease. So that was a failure because nobody wanted to know about science at that time. They were more focused, especially the high school kids. Like in the US, they do the GPA or GED, I don't recall, to go into the university and get a score. In Brazil, we have the same thing. It's called vestibular. It's a test that you do to go into the best universities. So they were very focused on that. That was the goal. They didn't care about science. So it was a big failure. We got no client. We got 1 client or 2, and we gave up. The second one was Genomic Enterprise that I have until today. Is a consultancy company, just me, that I do. And I've been doing consultancy since I finished my postdoctoral training at Harvard. So 2007, we are talking like 15 years probably. And the other one was DataGen, was a big success. The other one was a failure too. But I think, yes, the first one was trying to bring scientific communication, like what we do in the lab, what's important for general people to know. That now is important. Everybody keeps asking questions like, why this virus is killing everybody? What's going on? In the beginning, right? Now everybody knows a little bit more. You have to wear a mask. You have to get vaccinated, how the vaccines work. And in the beginning, it's funny and it's interesting because my whole family back in Brazil, and even people that I know in the US that are not from the field, they kept asking me questions because of my science background about microbes and why this and why that. Can I do this? Can I? Why can't I do that? So I think it's pushing a lot of the science into the general population. Why science is important? Why you have to give grants to scientific groups to do research. So especially in microbes, in viruses, or any other like microbes that could be a big deal in killing humans, right? So I think, yeah, I think that I think in a nutshell, that's the first thing that we tried to do like 20 years ago. It didn't work, almost 20 years ago. I think now, as a consultancy, if general people is more interested in knowing what the labs are doing, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. And thanks for sharing that. It's interesting that you mentioned your background and how it's relevant to what's been going on currently. Are there any insights that you find yourself sharing with people that is not also known to the general public or readily available that could be beneficial for health reasons?
You mean best advice in terms of what's going on with the vaccines, the COVID-19 pandemic, or in
Yes.
general?
Yes.
Okay. Well, wear a mask. I was doing an analysis the other day because my mother is very scared. She has a condition, and she's always asking me questions. And wear a N95 or FFP2 mask. So the test that you can do, you put a mask. It could be like a fabric mask. You put a mask, and you have something that you can blow, like fire, for example. If it doesn't, the fire is still on, the air is not coming out or getting in. So that's the best test. Even though you get vaccinated, I see a lot of people getting, like 1/3 of the population of the US, and I see in other countries people getting vaccinated, the first dose and the second dose. It's not that you got vaccinated that you don't need to wear a mask anymore. That has to be clear. And what we are seeing a lot, and I have some friends that are doctors, medical doctors, is the long COVID diseases that are happening with people that got COVID-19 last year or even recently, like fatigue and headaches and several weird things, even in children, like some strange syndromes that are happening. But I think those things need more research. We really don't know, because the virus itself, interestingly, the virus itself doesn't kill the person. What kills the person is what the virus causes to the lungs, not just the lungs, the heart and other organs that it has receptors that it attach and kill the cells. And what kills the person is what comes next: pneumonia, sepsis. So the cause of death is not the virus itself. When you see the obituary or something that doctor writes, the person dies of respiratory problems or cardiac arrest because of the pneumonia, because of the sepsis. So that comes after the virus, like, destroyed all of the lungs or any other organs. So the virus is just, or the immune system becomes very active and destroy. It's like an autoimmune disease kind of thing. So I think the best advice is to places that are not locked down, take care of yourself. Don't go to the supermarkets with your kids. Stay at home. I see a lot of places that are not 100% in lockdown. People get, and the most important thing, doesn't mean that you got vaccinated, even with the second dose, that you don't need the mask anymore. I think we probably this year and next year we still have to recover with some restrictions. Yes.
Thank you for that insight and that knowledge that you have from being an expert in the field. With that in mind, if we flip the conversation to the very other end, right? What's actually getting you excited lately? Perhaps with your ventures, new knowledge, new projects. What's getting you excited?
Well, I think we are in an era right now that is basically moved by information, data, everywhere. So what gets me really excited, like you just told me in the beginning of our videocast or podcast, depending where you are listening, is data science, big data analytics, predictive analytics, and in any sector. Right now, everything is basically collecting data, analyzing, doing the metrics, and data visualization is very important. So healthcare, logistics, finance, everything you see, e-commerce, you see those companies in the lockdowns, in the COVID-19 last year, and still this year, the big company, and the big league ones are killing, quote, the small ones with the e-commerce. So with the big data analytics and all of the things that go in social media, I'm not naming companies right now, but everybody knows who they are. So I think big data analytics is the next, it is already happening, but it's the next revolution.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to make decision-making much more accurate and more effective for the outcomes we're looking to achieve.
And now, sorry to cut you off. Now, beyond data science, it comes AI, artificial intelligence, which is very connected. So machine learning, natural language processing, deep learning. Then you see blockchain, you see Bitcoin, you see all of those like things related to finance, like Bitcoin being a digital currency. So I think things are, well, if you use those things for the better, well, to increase the I would say quality of life of people in general, that's good. But we see a lot of people using those tools for the bad side, right, of things. So I think we have, and I was talking to somebody the other day, we have to have guidelines, and I see a lot of movements of people dealing with data science and AI to have a guideline of best practices in this area. So I think it's important to have
that. It certainly is. I mean, the advent of technology, not only can you make informed decisions, but you can design systems that will analyze it and actually make the decision for you to such a degree of efficacy that it would be nearly impossible for you to do it manually or yourself. So
I think the it's not that machines will take over. I think that data visualization is key. The decision makers in the end is going to be human. They are going to be humans, but the whole back end of the process is going to be faster, and it's going to increase the velocity, the speed, and accelerate a lot of things, as we saw last year. And I think we are going to come out. Well, we always have to see the positive, looking at the negative things. The pandemic was a bad thing that happened. A lot of people died and are dying still. The vaccine was a breakthrough. In 1 year, we did whatever takes almost a decade, 10 years. But I think we have to be careful, because in the end, who are the decision makers are humans, based on the data that they gathered, analyze, and visualize, right? So just to close this data science part, I think it's very important to make sure, like some people are telling, oh, the machines are going to take the world. I don't think that's the case.
Certainly. with that in mind, what's some of the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the best advice could be a cliche, but the best advice I received is from my dad, which is my best mentor. I see in your questions here, in your list of things that we can talk, I think the best mentor I had, even though we had some differences because of the generations, I think one thing that he always told me is you have always to be looking when you are dealing with somebody like a business person or even a friend or companion or a partner. You have to always look, is this person telling me the same thing that she or he is doing? If there is a parallel, so the things are aligned, is good. If the person is telling you something and doing something else, that's bad. That's not a trustful person, right? So I think the best advice is if the person is not doing what she or he is telling you, something's wrong.
I have not heard that put in that way in a very long time. That's really unique. And to add to that question,
thanks, Dad. Thanks, Salvador Costa, my dad. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So you did mention that your father has been one of your biggest mentors. What's some of the advice you've received from him recently, and how has it impacted you?
Well, we have our differences. Like I've said, he's from an older generation. But one thing that he always told me, and I never thought about it when I was in academia, doing my PhD or even my bachelor's, he's a project manager. He has a PMP certificate. So he always dealt with managing people. He always told me to study a lot, project management, how to deal with people, everything that we are talking here. And I never thought about it because scientists, they don't get any disciplines, or they are not trained to be managers. Like, they are horrible managers with finances, with people. They don't deal well with people. Well, a lot of them are geniuses, so they are very, in terms of social life, they are very isolated sometimes because, well, they are geniuses sometimes. But my dad always told me, you have to get this PMP certificate, you have to go to PMI, you have to study Scrum, Agile, which is something very important right now in IT, information technology, because he always dealt with systems analysis and hardware and connecting like IT things and doing big projects. So now I take a bow to what he told me because I think it's important. And now I'm getting all of this. I did this. I learned on the go. I learned by doing, but now I'm preparing to take my PMP certificate and doing a lot of Scrum tests and training. So, yeah.
Wow. So even though you went your own path, you found a way to, in some ways, follow in your father's footsteps to delve deeper into your path.
Yeah, after 2 decades of a lot of him talking, and one thing that he always told me in the past, and now I see that he was telling something important, but I was taking a lot. I was checking this. I was very aligned with this. He always told me the next revolution is going to be information, going to be data from the things that are happening. We're talking early 2000s and now. So you compare 20 years. There's a huge, like, all of the social media that came out, even in genomics, like science in general, the data that you can collect, because the IT, the hardware, the speed of the Wi-Fi, the internet, everything increased like crazy. So now I think I give him a lot of credit for that.
Well, he was definitely a on the cusp of what was going to happen. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
What would you say is a habit of yours that contributes to you and your success, or you being fully focused on what you're doing?
That's something that I started doing 2-3 years ago. I had some issues in my personal life, professional life, some things that happened, even the pandemic, right? And I would say, independent on your religion, everybody that is listening, I was raised Catholic Christian, but I started going to church when I was young, but becoming a scientist, I became a little atheistic, right? But then 3 years ago, I started learning and reading a lot about Buddhism and meditation and mindfulness. And now I started to meditate, and I meditate every day. So I'm reading a lot about free advertising for Dalai Lama, a lot about Dalai Lama and the whole way of Tibetan life, and detached from material things. So I changed a lot my life. I was very money driven, and now I'm very I was very anxious all the time. I was very on the, I would say, they say now in the autopilot mode, right? Always doing something. Now I think first. I like to meditate at least half an hour, 1 hour a day. So the daily habit that I have now is to meditate. That helps me to clear my mind. I'm not saying that I'm the meditator, the master of it, but I'm learning a lot. And I think it's good to clear your mind most of the time.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. How do you like to meditate? What is your routine?
Well, I wake up. First thing that I do is to, before even eating, I'm going to say some crazy habits. I take a lime with water, no sugar, without eating anything. And then I sit down in the meditation position. I put my ear pods and I place in a meditation song, either in, I don't know if I can tell any company, but in any streaming that I have, or even YouTube, and I stay half an hour, 1 hour, like just trying to, even though the mind can't disconnect, sometimes you have problems in your mind, at least you can relax and feel your breath. So that's the idea of meditation.
That sounds really good. Lime water and some calming music to start off the day. That sounds like
then I go have my breakfast, my coffee, or anything that I want to eat. So yes,
very good. And for people who want to do what you do, delving into entrepreneurship, delving into the categories of academia that you have, what would you recommend they do? And we're talking about individuals who are probably starting off their career and contemplating going into graduate school or jumping into a career and starting something.
Well, to start a business, right? That's your question.
Yeah.
Have an idea. Well, you can have the best idea in the world. Well, there are two things that I want to say about that are important, that I've been reading a lot. It's not the idea that gets the investors money or attention. Is the passion. If you are a very, very passionate person that wants to succeed with integrity and honesty, not like throwing somebody in the ground, I think independent on the idea, you can have a first idea that is not that good, but the investors get impressed with the passion of the person. The second thing is, if the idea doesn't work, you can pivot and do something different, but something is gonna at some point be successful. The other suggestion is go with your guts. Most of the times that I felt that that's not a good deal, or that's something was deep inside me telling me don't do this, I was 100% sure. So sometimes your guts, by guts I mean your like feeling like butterflies in the stomach or whatever, is like dating somebody, right? When you get into somebody investing in your stuff, getting equity, or even becoming a co-founder, it's like dating. You are in a society, you are together for a while doing something, so you have to or complement each other or be well with each other for a while, deal with the bad things and the good things. So it's like starting to date somebody. So if you see in the first day that is not doing well, yeah, that's bad. So the gut feeling tells a lot, especially in my case. I don't know other people.
Certainly. And in terms of a business tool that you use, an application that you appreciate, or some kind of website, what do you find yourself using the most for your current projects?
Well, can I say names? Like, can I name companies here?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, okay. Slack, it's an agile tool for project management. Common Flow, it's another one for Scrum, Agile. I think, I like Slack. Well, GitHub was bought by Microsoft, but GitHub is important for coders. In the Apple, we used a lot of methodologies that they have that I can disclose. One of them, is called CBL.
Sure. And what's that?
Challenge-based learning. You have a challenge, or PBL, problem-based learning. You have a problem, and the students, the teams, that 3 to 5 students or people, they have to build an app as a solution to that problem or to that challenge. So they use a lot of CBL and PBL. Google uses OKRs, which is Objective Key Results, as a tool. There are several softwares that can deal with that. And Amazon, since I can name names of companies, use STAR, Situation, Task, Action, Results. So those are methodologies and tools that have softwares attached to them that they can measure using metrics how the things are going, right? Sprints are important for Scrum and Agile. You do sprints of either 1 week or 4 weeks to evaluate how things are going. If you are dealing with a developers or developing team, I think basically, everybody uses Slack right now, and Kanban, Flow. There are several other apps or software that can be good for agile project management.
Yes, some of those that you named I haven't heard of before, so it's definitely worth looking into. And thanks for sharing those methodologies. I like to ask this question, and I think you kind of answered it in the beginning. You know, if you can go back in time and change what you're doing entirely, but you have all the knowledge that you have now, what would you do? And when I asked that, I think maybe you'd go and pursue being an astronaut, but maybe I'm wrong.
No. Well, who knows? Elon Musk can ask me if I want to get a lift in his spaceship, or even business, I like right?
For sure.
But that's not the case. I don't have like $2 million to pay for a trip like that. Anyway, I think with time the prices are gonna decrease. It's amazing just a quote, just a parenthesis. It's amazing what Elon Musk was able to do with space travel. Bezos too, with their money. They are putting the man on in the International Space Station, and probably soon in the moon, the Mars. I don't know for sure. But what I could be, if I decided to do something else, let me see. It's funny. I was talking to my girlfriend about that, and it's amazing how people can get a lot of money easily in social media right now, especially Instagram, right? So I don't really know if all of my knowledge right now, maybe an influencer or a YouTuber, I don't know. It's funny to say that, right? But I see kids getting like tons of money doing advertising for clothes. It's crazy. I know it's something that is gonna, it's not stable. It's something that is very unstable, but just showing how crazy the world is right now. Somebody can post a post if they have like hundreds of millions, like if they have like hundreds of thousands of followers in Instagram or TikTok or whatever, or one of those apps, Snapshot, I don't know, and they can get $5,000-$10,000 in one post, right? For a company or for advertising something. It's crazy, like kids with 17, 18, 16. We are in a different era, and all of that is basically moved by data science or AI that is in the background of those companies. Facebook owns Instagram and WhatsApp, for example, and Oculus Rift. So I'm not making fun, but I think I would be doing more science communication right now through the tools that we have in terms of media, like YouTube. Like I'm doing a lot of podcasts. That's something that, or even video casts with you right now. That's something that I want to do more, because I think, and I 2 years ago, if you asked me about podcasts, I would say, I don't think this is gonna be something big. And now that everybody's staying home and you have Netflix to watch movies, you have all of those streaming things, but you have audiobooks that you can listen to books right now. So I'm listening like one book in 2 days. So the information is getting to us faster and faster. So I would say do more, communicate more what I've done to the general public, because I see influencers talking about things that are not very important and getting a lot of money. And I think there are several things that are very important for humanity that could be spread around in those platforms that nobody does, because they don't have sponsors sometimes.
Yeah, I certainly agree that you can definitely share your knowledge and the impact that you're doing with others, and encourage you to do so. Hopefully this conversation, along with others that you've been having will spark that. Really appreciate your time, Fabricio.
I'm not just one parenthesis. I'm not telling everybody to become an influencer on Instagram. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that you can use those tools in a better way to communicate things that are not fake. They are important, and they can impact people's life in terms of like science or technology or anything, right? Not just advertise a clothes or a shoes or whatever. That's it.
Certainly. And again, thank you so much for your time. It's been really enjoyable. If you can share a final takeaway and a way for people to be in touch with you or to follow up with your current projects,
yes,
I think that would be great.
Yes, you can follow. I have a personal and professional website. It's www.genomicenterprise.com. My blog is genomicenterprise.blog, and I have my LinkedIn profile. If you can find me as Fabricio F, short for Falcone, Italianish, Costa, Fabricio F Costa. So it's in /Fabricio F Costa. Yeah, I think. Well, and I have the Twitter too, F Falcone with an I in the end. I don't have Facebook page. I don't have an Instagram page. I don't have the TikTok or even Snapshot. I got out of those. I had to use WhatsApp. I got out of those social medias some years ago.
Phenomenal. And what's a final message you'd like to share?
Be curious always. Have grit, right? Not greed, but grit in anything that you do, that you would be successful. And one message that I'm gonna tell you that also comes from my dad sometimes is, in the worst case scenarios, the best solutions or the best ideas evolve or come sometimes. And we are living in a terrible situation right now. It's getting better, but you see a lot of interesting things coming out, especially in technology, because of that.
Definitely. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and I really look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always a
Thanks for attending the Business Podcast, and stay tuned for more episodes.